Thanks everybody for coming today. We're going to give us just 1 or 2 minutes here to let everyone else join the webinar, and we'll get started at 12:01. See, we still have a couple people joining, so we'll start, as I say, at 12:01, and we'll get going in just a moment here. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Today we are going to talk about how we can use cloud data to improve our inventory forecasting for electronics. And we're here with Macrifab, and hopefully you'll find some useful information here in this webinar. If we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Oh, little too far. If we go back one, Michelle, please. Thank you. So my name is Chris Church. I am the co-founder and chief product officer here at Macrifab. I've spent about 20 years in various parts of the technology and manufacturing industries, whether it's been in SaaS software, cloud computing, robotics, or more recently for the past 10 years or so, specifically in manufacturing. I work with our product engineering and support teams to really make the data we're going to talk about here today available to you, and to really work on, to really ensure a great customer experience in electronics manufacturing. And who we are as Macrifab. We are a digital electronics manufacturing platform. And a little later in the webinar, I'm actually going to talk about what we do and how we do it, and how we can help you leverage real-time information for better product delivery. So if we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. Um, our agenda today, we're going to talk a little bit about the current state of the supply chain out there. I think we've all heard quite a bit, and we're just going to have a brief update on where things are and what we can see happening over the next several months. Then we'll talk about some ways we can use data to really improve and optimize our inventory management. Then we'll talk about Macrifab in a little more detail. We'll talk about how we can improve supply chain management, and then we'll wrap it up with a few takeaways. After that, we will have time for question and answer, and hopefully, yeah, we can get into a little more detail anywhere you guys might want some information. So if we'll go ahead and advance. So today, what we are seeing is the demand for components across several categories does appear to be going down, but it is still well elevated, from what we would call stable levels, or what the electronics component industry of America would call stable levels. So we can see, the electrical, mechanical, passives, the semiconductors, all of these are starting to go down. However, with ongoing shutdowns in the key manufacturing regions of China, we are continuing to see increased lead times. And if we'll go to the next slide, we'll dive into those lead times in just a little bit. So what we're seeing on the left here is a chart from the ECIA showing the lead times through February, and we're continuing to see, this is the most recent published data, but we're continuing to see ongoing lead time increases. We expect that due to strong demand, because the demand will remain strong, assuming the worldwide economy is able to hang in there throughout the remainder of the year. But we're expecting demand to continue to be strong and lead times to continue to increase throughout, actually at this point through mid 2023. We do not see this letting up right now in 2022. And along with the lead time increases, we are seeing significant price increases. Those are both being driven by demand and the inability of factories to meet that capacity, but we're also seeing that from inflationary pressure. And if we look at the graph on the right, this is from the most recent TPC survey. These are for semiconductor manufacturers, and these are how many are intending to increase prices in any given month. And we saw that in January, February, and March, most manufacturers were increasing prices, and we are expecting the price increases to continue through the remainder of the year. So what we're starting to see right now is, even though a lot of factories have come back online, from the pandemic back in 2020 through 2021, demand continued to grow and outstrip the ability to produce, leading to increasing lead times that are not letting up now. And we're starting to see prices to increase more and more with the goal of normalizing that market. So we will expect, as prices continue to increase, demand will start to slow down sometime later in the year. And we'll start to see the capacity to deliver components and lead times begin to normalize and move back down mid next year. And this is across several sources. This is what we're hearing. So normally, if I would just hear this from one or two different organizations or distributors or companies out there, we would start to look a little more positively at things improving by the end of the year. But we are hearing this across the board from all of our sources right now. So we really think that the mid 2023 timeframe, barring any major changes in the global economy, will be the time we first start seeing lead times really start to improve and prices start to come down. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So let's think about what that is doing to us when we're considering buying materials, managing our production, and to kind of get an idea of our own experience here at Macrifab. We purchase on average about 4,000 unique line items a week. So we're seeing we have a lot of visibility over numerous product categories. And one of the things that we are seeing is, while we're not getting any major new changes in the supply chain position, we still tend to see about 90% of products have one or more components in it, which are being impacted by any of the situations that are driving these lead times and the pricing. And so, what we aren't seeing is a rapid increase in the number of components that are being impacted, but likewise, we are not seeing a decrease in the components that are being impacted. So we would consider, for the past several months, the overall supply chain situation is stably bad, is the terminology we would use here. Not getting incredibly worse, but we are starting to see more and more lead times push out. So while the number of components impacted are not increasing at this moment, the components which are impacted are getting harder and harder to get. And that is across all product families. Now, some of these product categories, if we're thinking electromechanical, our passives, our interconnects, etc., do have moments where they improve. And specifically, we saw some improvement in passives up until about March. And what happened in March? We had an earthquake off the coast of Fukushima, and that did shut down several component factories, including several passive factories. So many of our, your basic passives, your resistors, your capacitors were getting better at the beginning of the year. Then that delay in production in Japan did cause a ripple effect, and now we're starting to see the lead times increase again after a brief moment of improvement. We still see strong demand in consumer goods, IoT, electric vehicles, and that's not going away anytime soon, as far as we can tell. So we'll continue to see semiconductors, especially and a lot of our actives, whether we're talking about MOSFETs, any sort of power control, anything related, especially in the vehicle category, will continue to be impacted. Now, one of the things that we did see late last year, we did see TSMC open up new capacity for the technologies that are used primarily in automotive manufacturing, but this wasn't whole new factories being started. This was capacity that was being shifted from other markets to that market. So while it did help the automotive industry just a little bit, it did have a knock-on effect in other, especially in the industrial categories, which is where that capacity was redirected from. Lately, one of the probably the most major impact to the current supply chain situation are the ongoing COVID shutdowns in China. Right now, we're still working out of some of the shutdowns in Shanghai and Beijing, which are impacting shipments. And the shutdowns in Shenzhen in March did combine with the issues that we were seeing due to the earthquake in Japan, and really had a huge impact. And thinking about how areas like Shenzhen impact our component availability, we tend to think of a lot of these areas in China as manufacturing the finished goods. About a third of the overall IC packaging. So if we think about how our integrated circuits are produced, we have the foundries who are, or the fabs, whichever terminology you want to use there, which actually do the wafer production. That is, they etch the circuits into the wafers, but then those are moved to packaging. About a third of the world's packaging, which is where they put it in those wafers into the plastic little component enclosures we tend to think of as a chip, and put those leads on them. About a third of that capacity is in China, and a significant portion of that was in the Shenzhen region. So when that area shut down and the factory shut down, that created a backlog for getting those wafers into packaging. So that is continuing to impact us, even though it happened back in March. Shutting down for a couple of weeks like that really, constrained the ability to supply chips to the rest of the market, and we're still working through that now. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So thinking about what we can do with real-time data, with many of the cloud services out there, and those aren't just necessarily the ones that we here produce at Macrifab. These include other services from companies like SupplyFrame, from Octopart and Altium. There's a whole world of data out there available to us as purchasing managers or purchasing professionals. Anyone who has to manage the inventory for production for their products, there are a large number of real-time data sets available to you. And one of the key things, that we really see once we start integrating real-time data into our decision-making tools is the speed at which we can make decisions. A big challenge that we see right now is the availability of materials when they do become available are typically for a very brief period of time. We have what we call a strategic sourcing team that works with our customers to actually go out and find hard to find components, things that are not available at standard distributors that have a long lead time. And our typical window to make a purchase decision is about an hour. We have to, when we get those materials made available to us, typically the seller wants us to execute that transaction in an hour or less. So if you are waiting days to get information, you're often missing out on the opportunity to actually go out and solve an inventory challenge you're facing. So the faster you can move, the more likely you are to solve that problem, especially in today's market. And by interconnecting your inventory systems, whether you're using an off-the-shelf MRP or another inventory management system or something you've built custom in-house, the ability to link real-time data into that will help your inventory management in making decisions and solving those gaps very, very quickly. One of the other key things that we really see that is very important that we use regularly, and we also, of course, would suggest anyone take advantage of, is looking at past performance data. What is the reliability of your suppliers? What was availability of this material looking like over time? So as we're integrating these real-time data sources into our systems, we also want to capture the state at any given point in time so that we can look back. And by using those trends, we can determine going forward what potential issues we may have. We may say, hey, while this material is readily available today, um, the inventory on the shelves in distribution has been dropping by about 50% week over week for the past 4 weeks. That tells us if I need this part in 6 weeks' time, we may need to go ahead and order it now and bring that order in earlier than we were intended to do in just in time, because that stock may not be available to us. And by capturing that data in real time and tracking it and monitoring it, you can use that to predict the future issues you're going to have and then go ahead and react to those much, much faster than if we were following a more traditional process where we reach out for quotes just when we think we need to buy it. So that can be a very critical capability for your company and how you utilize that information. Another key thing that we, really highly recommend, and you can do this with a lot of tools. If you're using things like Altium, you can centralize your bill of materials management across all of your designs, and you can do this with several MRPs out there as well, to where you start to look at not just one product that you need to build next, but really all of the materials that are used in all of your products, and then tying in that real-time supply chain information can show you products in your catalog that will potentially have problems and allow you to start reacting to that long before you need to go out and resupply those particular products. And that is, a very common goal. We tend to see centralized bill of materials management across product catalogs, but what we often don't see is a real-time data flow tied to that. And we can do that through our platform at Macrifab. You can do it with common design tools like Altium, and there are plenty of tools out there that will enable you. But the key thing is to make that plan to look at your entire product catalog, not just the next product you need to build, and identify problems before they happen there. Now, one of the big things that we're huge supporters of, and that's part of the reason why we have a partnership with Altium, is the connecting the design tools to your supply chain information. If you've already designed the product, if you've already made your prototypes, if you've already validated it, that is the worst possible case to go ahead and start finding supply chain issues, right? We want to find those as early in the design process as possible, so that we can design around those. And if we go back and look at the webinar history, we did a webinar, I think about a month and a half ago, talking about some of the activities that we can do as product designers, utilizing that information and how we can react to any supply chain issues. But if we don't have that information while our engineers are doing design, it may be too late by the time we get back to purchasing, when we get to purchasing rather. And so having to go back and feedback from purchasing to the engineering team can be a very, very challenging time sink in your production. So if you're starting to do a new product out there, you're starting to design that, the bringing that supply chain information into the engineering tools can help the engineering team solve design supply problems long before the product is complete. And then finally, one of the things that we find is very, very critical, and every company we've talked to that does this really feels it has been a huge time saver and problem solving tool for them, is automated alerting, right? Whether it's alerting about the life cycle status change on a component, or watching those trends we talked about, modeling that past performance and highlighting predictive future events like, hey, we're currently predicting this component will be out of stock in the next 6 weeks, or it just went out of stock, or it just came into stock. Using automated alerts to the right team members at the right time can really enable your company to be not just reactive, but highly proactive to changing market conditions and can give you a leg up ahead of everyone else. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. And thinking about, what everyone else is thinking on the topics we just discussed, Oxford University and SAP did a survey of 1,000 different purchasing organizations recently. And for those that ranked at the top, which were about 12% of all of the companies that were actually surveyed, half of those that were ranked at the top as the best performing were using automated data collection and insight generation. That's at 50% there, versus if you look at the remainders, those that didn't make it to the top of the performance measurements, only about 15% were using automated data collection and insight generation. And all of those that were surveyed, they all indicated that the ability to use tools to take this data in automatically and start generating insights were part of the reason they were performing so well. So we know that that is something that can really improve our outcomes. And it's something, if you're having challenges selling that to your leadership, I think you can point to some of these surveys and say, look, this is really what the best companies out there are doing. McKinsey talks about using an automated or autonomous supply chain planning can increase your revenue up to 4% and reduce your inventory up to 20%. These are good wins. They're not just about dealing with unavailable materials, but they are also about, better management of your existing stock and reducing your overall cost. We also find that, a very small portion of companies out there really have begun to digitize their supply chain, but this is a trend that we're seeing across the market right now. Based on the PwC survey, 75% of the companies that they surveyed said they intended to digitize their supply chain in the next 5 years. And one of the key things we're looking at is this isn't across all markets, right? So there's still segments of the market where the idea of digitization, using real-time data, feeding that into our supply chain decision-making process is not quite fully penetrated the world yet. So if we look, for example, in the McKinsey survey I referred to earlier, they looked at consumer packaged goods in China, and they found that 80% of the companies they talked to there were still using traditional human-driven collaborative processes with limited real-time decision-making or automation. So, I think one of the things that really stands out here is you can look at information like this, these surveys that are out there, and compare yourself to your peers and say, hey, can I get an advantage over the other companies in my space by getting ahead of that? If you're in a position where you have not yet started to take advantage of real-time integrations, even at the simple level of EDI in your ERP systems, to really get visibility into the status of your orders, something like that alone is a perfect start. We talked, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, we talked with DigiKey and did a conversation with them about taking a sort of a structured piecemeal, a little bit of improvement every day approach. That can really add up over time. And if you're having trouble selling that to management, I think you can use data like this to really help push your point and really show that you can create competitive advantage with your peers in the market. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Right. So I talked, I mentioned that we're at Macrifab. What we are is we are a digital electronics manufacturing platform. We enable our customers to get instant pricing and lead times. And we also work with 75 different factories. So we enable our customers to take a full catalog of products and manage those across multiple manufacturers through a single platform. And part of the capabilities and how we enable our customers to get instant pricing and lead times is through automated purchasing and real-time supply chain information through direct supplier integration. So we integrate with about 30 to 40 different sources, whether it be yeah, the inventory level at common vendors like DigiKey and Mouser and Future, or at aggregate information levels like Octopart and other sources like that. We bring a lot of information, we bring it into one place and compare it to your design to highlight issues in real time. One of the things that we recently launched was direct integration with Altium, so that in Altium Designer, not only can you see material availability for your design, you can actually get quoting and lead time prices for manufacturing that design, and even order it with the click of a button through the Altimade plugin in Altium. We also support all major EDAs. We really focus on enabling the engineering teams at our customers to be able to get all of the information they need and have as simple a process as possible of going from the design in their tool to pricing and understanding what labor is going to go into their design, what materials are going to be impacted. And then we enable those engineers to lock down and manage designs for their purchasing teams, and even to react in real time. With a job on the floor, one of the biggest challenges is maybe you have a little bit of overconsumption at the factory, and you had just enough material to get that job done. Well, what happens when the factory, overconsumes? Either loss is higher than you would anticipate, or there were just quality issues that resulted in a higher consumption of components than one would hope for. And then you go out there to replenish it, and it's not available on the market. We provide the tools for that engineering team to instantaneously update the list of alternates, see what's available out there, and push that all the way to the factory floor, all with a few clicks of a button, enabling that job to get back up and running and to work around those supply chain issues. Now, I mentioned that we work with about 75 different factories. And what we do is we map the right product to the right factory in real time. And we do this by constantly evaluating the quality, the actual quality output. So we do a lot of analysis. About 95% of the printed circuit boards that are built by our factories for our customers go through our own secondary quality assurance so that we can measure their quality in real time. We're also able to map the capabilities of the factory to the specific product that you're working with in the Macrifab platform. And we're also able to look at the types of products the factory typically builds and the volumes they typically build them at, to get you the right factory with the right price and the right lead time and the right capabilities and the right quality outcome on every given order, and really unlock a lot of the North American capacity for our customers. We also do this, we also support transparent communication. We get real-time updates are being pushed from the platform. Visibility's in there. We have dedicated customer care, program management teams that all really help to bring the right information to you as quickly as possible, and make that available to you online through our portal or through APIs. So we'll go to the next slide. So let's talk about some of the capabilities that we offer to our customers today that will really help improve inventory agility. We do, and again, when we talk about the types of products we build, we work very heavily in the industrial computing and communication segments, and we offer everything from printed circuit board assembly to final product assembly and on to fulfillment. We can help really improve that inventory agility. If we go to the next slide, we'll talk about some of the ways in which we do that. So we have a dedicated strategic sourcing team in-house that services our customers. So not just going through traditional management, not having to go out to a broker that's really not interested in the overall outcomes of your business, but we have integrated with our manufacturing and purchasing teams. We have a strategic sourcing team that can go out, work with other factories, find available inventory out there, validate that inventory, and help you get past any hard to find material issues. As I said earlier, about 95% of the products we build have one or more components which are facing availability issues today. And we typically succeed at about a 50% rate in our strategic sourcing in being able to find new sources for quality, usable materials in those designs. We have a multi-stream materials management capability in multiple countries. That's the US and Mexico, right? And what I mean by multi-stream are both materials you own and manage and materials that we acquire for you. And we have three different ways we can manage that. One is the materials in your warehouse so that they get transferred to our facilities on an as-needed basis. The other is you can, with Macrifab, you can actually take materials you intend to use across multiple builds and use them regularly. You can actually transport those easily. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can either use our platform or our APIs and transfer those to one of our warehouses, and then we can pull from those on demand and then enable you to, at a design or order level, pick how you want that sourced. And of course, we do all of the sourcing for the turnkey materials and kitting, everything necessary to make sure the factories have the materials they need. We send full ready to build kits, and we manage all those materials across multiple warehouses, whether it's yours or one of ours. We are also able to not just build the products, but again, put them in one of our warehouses after build to reduce the cost of shipment and managing that inventory to get it out of your warehouse and into one of ours. We can store those finished goods, and then we can enable fulfillment direct to customers, managed by you through our either through our platform or through APIs, so that you can not just manage the materials to build it, but the finished goods all through one interface, all through one API, and really be fully digitally enabled, right? There are a lot of different companies out there that can help you get materials, that can help you warehouse things, but the ability to connect the materials management, the manufacturing, the finished goods, and the fulfillment all through one API, all through one digital platform. That's where we feel we really stand out there, and we're happy to talk with you. Feel free to reach out to me after this at any point in time, and then we're happy to talk with you about how we can put those capabilities together to help you solve the inventory challenges you have today. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. To wrap up what we've talked about here, we know that real-time data is available out there. Most of the systems we work with now have some capability of taking that in. The next level of having that data is really utilizing it to predict and automate decision making, to give us a leg up on our peers out there, to find materials that are available, to identify problems before they can happen, and really in doing that, that does provide a competitive advantage for your business, not just in dealing with problems for supply chain management that exist today in the market the way it is, but also even when times are normal, in reducing cost and providing greater agility. At Macrifab, we provide a lot of these same capabilities for you. So if you don't have those abilities built into your systems, we can combine that with your manufacturing and give you one top-down level view into all of your information and all of your data. We can help you manage those that inventory material, and we're happy to help in any way we can with any challenges you're currently facing. That's it for the overall bulk of our webinar today, and I'd like to open it up now for questions. So if you have any questions, please put them in the questions window of the GoToWebinar, and we'll take some time here to answer those. So I'll give you guys a few minutes to go ahead and ask any questions you guys have, and we'll be here as long as we need to answer those. Michelle, do we have anything so far?
No, not yet, Chris. Very informative. We've been through quite a few webinars, and your webinars continue to keep helping me understand the product and the industry and where we are.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be specific to digital data. If you want to ask any other questions about supply chain or Macrifab capabilities, anything like that, I'm happy to answer as well.
we'll give everyone one more minute. Chris, I think we can wrap up over here. I don't see any questions coming up.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I really appreciate every time you guys come out and join us for one of these conversations. I hope they're helpful to you. If there's anything you'd like to see us cover, if you have any questions for me personally, please reach out to me. You can email me at church@macrifab.com, and I'm happy to do anything I can, expand on anything, or suggest topics for our webinar team going forward. That being said, enjoy the rest of your lunch breaks. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys again in a few weeks.
Thanks, guys.